The name El Dorado conjures up images of glittering gold and fantastic riches. For centuries, this legendary city has captured the imagination of fortune seekers. But the reality of El Dorado is not a place of gold, but a story of cultural misunderstanding, violent conquest, and the tragic transformation of a continent. Our story begins not with Europeans, but with the indigenous peoples who lived in the Andean highlands of present-day Colombia. Specifically, the Muisca people. They practiced a ceremony documented by Spanish chroniclers that gave rise to this myth of gold. The Muisca had a unique ritual involving a new chieftain where they covered him in gold dust and took him to a lake, Lake Guatavita. Offerings of precious objects were then thrown into its waters. It is important to understand that for the Muisca, this was not about acquiring gold. It was about a spiritual transition and maintaining a cosmic balance. In the early 16th century, the Spanish arrived in South America driven by ambitions of conquest and an insatiable quest for precious metals. They encountered indigenous populations with their own distinct customs and beliefs. The stories of Muisca, rituals distorted by translation and Spanish greed, began to change. What began as a ceremonial practice became a rumor of a golden man. El Dorado, a king covered in gold. This figure soon grew into an entire city of riches. The Spanish, blinded by greed, rejected the spiritual dimensions of Muisca practice and focused solely on the potential for material gain. Initial accounts were limited. Tales of a place near Lake Guatavita led to some initial Spanish attempts to find this golden king with minimal results. However, the myth of El Dorado expanded significantly as accounts began to connect this city to a legendary kingdom beyond the known world. This idea of El Dorado was an invention, a misrepresentation of indigenous cultures. It gained traction in the minds of the Spanish and Europeans. It was a powerful myth, and soon fueled many expeditions that came at a terrible cost. The search for El Dorado led to numerous expensive and failed expeditions. The most notable was that of Gonzalo Jimenez de Quesada, who, after discovering the Muisca people in the 1530s, was captivated by the possibility of gold. However, conquest of the Muisca was fraught with violence and cultural destruction. Other notable expeditions included those of Francisco de Orellana and Pedro de Ursua. Their search for El Dorado took them up the Amazon River, a treacherous route that cost the lives of many men and led to conflict with several indigenous communities. These expeditions did not discover El Dorado. They merely revealed more of the continent and hastened the brutal subjugation of its people. Instead of gold, they found hardship, death, and resistance. The failure of the expeditions to find any city of gold did not stop the legend from persisting. The stories of El Dorado became more elaborate over time, becoming ingrained in European literature and popular culture. El Dorado evolved from a single golden king to a vast city with streets paved with precious metals. This illustrates how myths are not static. They change to suit the narrative and desires of the people who believe in them. Gradually, the notion of El Dorado as a literal place began to lose its power, as maps of South America became more accurate, and Europeans failed to find such a place. El Dorado shifted from a physical location to a symbolic representation of a place of unattainable wealth. The legend of El Dorado is a tale of the destructive effects of greed and misunderstanding. It is a story that reminds us of the power of myth and how it can transform ambitions and stories. The real treasures were not gold, but the unique cultures and histories of the peoples of South America. The tale of El Dorado serves as a lesson. It is important to examine all stories critically and strive to separate fact from fabrications. That can cause tremendous harm. The Muisca ritual was not a secret to be plundered but a part of their culture which should be remembered in the context of its own history, not as an incitement to violence and greed.